Hi, welcome to my channel. It's nearly St. Patrick's Day, so I thought I'd do a video going through some of the traditions and some of the history behind the day, and also how we celebrate it here in Ireland. So St. Patrick's Day is celebrated every year on March 17th, and it marks the death of St. Patrick, who is the patron saint of Ireland. And it's been celebrated for about 1,000 years, so it's a big day in Ireland. And St. Patrick's Day can also be referred to as Paddy's Day or St. Paddy's Day, but it is not ever to be referred to as Paddy's Day or St. Paddy's Day. Paddy is short for Patrick. Paddy is short for Patricia, that's a girl's name, and the Irish do not tolerate it being referred to as Paddy's Day ever. So don't do it. So it's only Paddy's Day. So now that I've got that important note out of the way, St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, it's a bank holiday. So most people get the day off work, schools are closed, and it's just a day to celebrate St. Patrick and all things Irish. So first, I'll just really quickly go through who St. Patrick was and why we celebrate him. He's basically the one that brought Christianity to Ireland. So he was born in the UK in the 5th century, and when he was 16 years old, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates and brought to Ireland as a slave. And he spent 6 years minding sheep on mountains when he had a vision of an angel appearing to him and tell him how he could escape. So he followed this angel's instructions and managed to escape back to his homeland, back to his family. And when he was home, he had a real calling for Christianity. After his vision, he was just called to the religion. And so he ordained as a priest, and then he really felt Ireland calling to him. He felt the voice of Ireland calling St. Patrick, or Patrick before he was a saint, Patrick, back to them. So he went back to Ireland, and he really changed the entire structure of the country, not just by bringing Christianity, but he established a civilization that just didn't exist in the country before. And the celebration of St. Patrick began in around the 9th century, and then in the 1600s it became an official Catholic feast day, which meant Catholics were obliged to go to church, go to mass on this day, and pay respect to St. Patrick. And but it was more of a somber, solemn affair back then, kind of a day spent in prayer. And then came the Penal Times, and Ireland was under British rule, and penal laws were put in place that basically persecuted any Irish Catholics. And at that time, basically every Irish person was Catholic. The vast majority of Irish were Catholics. So these laws that were put in place, basically, people debate this, but essentially the laws were that the Irish Catholics couldn't own land, they couldn't receive an education, they couldn't speak Irish. This is why we speak English in Ireland today, because of the laws that were put in place back then. So during this time, the Irish, they made St. Patrick's Day more of a patriotic holiday and less a religious holiday. And then it became more of a celebration of things Irish and Ireland, as well as St. Patrick. So then the day became church in the morning and then a celebration in the afternoon. And we associate drinking and alcohol with St. Patrick's Day, but up until the 1970s, pubs were closed. You weren't allowed to get alcohol on St. Patrick's Day because it was supposed to be seen as a religious holiday, and this was out of respect for the occasion. So there's actually no drinking in pubs on St. Patrick's Day until the 1970s. So these days in Ireland, the standard celebration for St. Patrick's Day would be go to the parade and then meet your friends and family for some merriment and some drinking. The religious aspect isn't totally gone, but people don't really tend to go to mass unless you're very religious. You don't really go to church anymore on St. Patrick's Day. And there's the main parade in Dublin City, and that's a huge affair. It's a big event with amazing floats, and it's a big thing. And then all the smaller villages and towns around Ireland, they have their own local parades. And then the local parades, they're not as amazing as the Dublin City parade. They're kind of more the local sports teams, marching bands, first responders, so like fire engines, Coast Guard, and there's usually a few tractors. And I always go to my local parade and I absolutely love it. And everyone gathers along the streets and people wear green and paint shamrocks on their faces and wave Irish flags, and it's just a really fun time. And then after the parade, people tend to go to the pub for a drink. And pubs, because it's a big fun celebration day, pubs usually have like something on. So they'd have some trad music, which is traditional Irish music, or some ceilidhs. Ceilidhs is traditional Irish dance, like folk dance, or some fun things for kids. You know, kids will go to the pub as well on St. Patrick's Day. It's a family thing. We all celebrate together. At the moment, I'm not really going to the pub on St. Patrick's Day anymore because my kids are a little bit too young for the madness. So right now, after our local parade, we come back to our house, we have some friends over, and we just celebrate at home. But as soon as the kids are a little bit older, I will definitely go back to the pub scene. It's so much fun, such a great vibe, and I have such great memories of being in the pub with my family on St. Patrick's Day and running around with my friends. So yeah, it's a great time. And here's a fun fact: the very first St. Patrick's Day parade wasn't actually in Ireland, it was in America, in New York City in 1762, and it was Irish soldiers marching through the streets of Manhattan to a local tavern to have a drink. And then the first official St. Patrick's Day parade was in 1848, and that was also in America and New York City, and that was put on by patriotic Irish immigrants. And the first parade in Ireland didn't actually take place until 1903 in Waterford, so we actually took that tradition on St. Patrick's Day from Americans. So thanks, America. So the color green is really associated with St. Patrick and Ireland, but in the past that color was blue, and it was actually called St. Patrick's blue, and that changed during the 1798 Irish Rebellion led by Wolfe Tone. So Irish people, Irish Catholics, were sick and tired of being under British rule, so they had a big rebellion, and the flags that they waved were green. Supporters wore green. If you didn't have green clothing, you'd wear green shamrocks on your clothing to show you were a supporter. And it was very dangerous. If you were caught wearing shamrocks or with green clothing, you could be hanged by the English. So it was a very dangerous thing to show your support for the rebellion. So then green became the color of St. Patrick and of Ireland, and the flag became green. The flag as we know it today is actually very modern. It's only been the national flag for not even 100 years, so it's very new. And what the flag symbolizes now is green is Irish Catholics, orange is Irish Protestants, and white is the harmony between them. So now on St. Patrick's Day, the Irish flag is a big symbol. Everyone waves it at parades, except in Belfast. In Belfast, there's a bit of basically Protestants have a bit of hostility about that flag being used in Northern Ireland. Belfast is in Northern Ireland. And because it's a national symbol, they don't really like that being used. There's been a lot of trouble about that flag in Northern Ireland. So usually now in Belfast and up north on St. Patrick's Day, they don't wave that flag, they just wave green flags with shamrocks on them. So more of a neutral symbol. So some of the other symbols, I mentioned shamrocks. Shamrocks are obviously a big symbol on St. Patrick's Day. Apparently St. Patrick used the shamrock to explain to people about the Holy Trinity of Christianity, you know, the three clovers, the Holy Trinity. So nowadays you can buy shamrocks to wear on your clothes for the day. Another symbol associated with St. Patrick is the Celtic Cross, and it's said that he actually designed this himself. And what the Celtic Cross is that when he was converting pagans to Christianity, he found that they worshipped the sun. So the pagan sun symbol was very important to them. So he took the pagan sun symbol and he put it inside the Christian cross as a way to show them how important the Christian cross symbol was. So that is what a Celtic cross is, and that's where it comes from. Another symbol, snakes. People say that St. Patrick drove all the snakes out of Ireland, and that's a metaphor. No one actually believes that he literally did that. There's never been snakes in Ireland, but it's symbolic of him driving paganism out of Ireland. So that's what the snakes represents. Another symbol, whenever you see a picture of St. Patrick or a painting of him, he's always got his staff. And a story that I think is so funny because it's so true to Irish humor that this story has survived for so long. But basically there's a story that when St. Patrick was baptizing King Angus, he had his eyes closed and he was deep in prayer, and he lifted up the staff and he slammed it down on the ground, and he didn't notice at the time, but it actually went straight through the king's foot, and it pierced his foot right through. And he didn't notice, and the king didn't say anything. He kind of stifled his pain and his screams and just kind of continued on. And then at the end, St. Patrick saw what he had done, and he saw all the blood, and he said to King Angus, "Why didn't you say anything?" And King Angus said, "I thought it was part of the ceremony." And there's another old story of when St. Patrick was converting another king, and the king wasn't sure, so he needed some convincing. So it said that St. Patrick summoned Cuchulainn from the depths of hell. And Cuchulainn is Ireland's greatest hero of all time, and he was actually dead for a good few centuries before St. Patrick came along and before Christianity, so he never got into heaven because he wasn't a Christian. So Cuchulainn explained all this to the king and said Christianity was the right way. So the king converted, and St. Patrick granted Cuchulainn the right to go to heaven. So now Cuchulainn is in heaven. So I spent St. Patrick's Day in the US one year. I was in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest, and I had so much fun. It was just such a big, amazing celebration, and I noticed a few differences between the way America celebrates St. Patrick's Day and the way Irish do. There's a couple differences. So first of all, green beer. Green beer is a big thing in America, but you won't find green beer in Ireland. You might get a green cocktail in a bar, but green beer in general just isn't a thing. Kilts is another thing. I saw a lot of guys dressing up in kilts on St. Patrick's Day. Kilts is more of a Scottish tradition. It's more associated with Scotland. So you wouldn't really see Irish men wearing kilts on St. Patrick's Day unless they're part of the marching band. What else? Oh, a pinch for not wearing green. That's not an Irish thing. We don't do that in Ireland as well. I mean, most people wear green anyway, but if you don't wear green, you're not going to get a pinch. So there's those few little differences, but I think overall we celebrate it the same way. It's just a day to get together with family and friends, have a drink, celebrate, and be proud to be Irish and celebrate Ireland and just have a really good time. So happy St. Patrick's Day to you. If you want to say it in Irish, it's Lá le Pádraig Sunnaguit. Lá le Pádraig Sunnaguit. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any ideas for any more videos of Irish things or Ireland you want me to do, please let me know in the comments below, or any other videos in general. Just please let me know. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.